Welcome back to Media7. Before the break, I spoke to Garth McVicar of the Sensible Sentencing Trust. I'm joined now by Roger Brooking, Clinical Manager at the company Alcohol and Drug Assessment and Counselling, and the source of a successful broadcasting standards complaint about a TVNZ interview with Garth McVicar last year. And Bryce Johns. He was the editor of the Waikato Times and he's soon to be the editor of the Herald on Sunday. Welcome to you both. Roger, let's start by clarifying what you do. What's your job and your contact with the criminal justice system?
Well, I'm an alcohol and drug counsellor, and it's a job that I've been doing for about 10 years. Most of my work involves doing alcohol and drug assessments for people who are appearing in court with alcohol and drug-related offending, which is 80% of all offending. The other part of my work basically is doing assessments for the parole board. So when somebody's applying for parole, they haven't been able to address their alcohol and drug offending in prison, which is normally the case. The parole board will probably only release them if they go directly to a program in the community. And so I come in, I do an assessment, I make a referral to a program, and if the parole board smiles beneficently on them, then they can go.
So how did that experience inform your BSA complaint?
Well, it's a big question, because in the time that I've been doing this role, I've discovered basically three major areas where the justice system and the corrections department does not assist offenders who end up in prison or in the system at all. First of all, when people appear in court, and 80% of everybody who appears in court is under the influence of alcohol and drugs when they commit their offending. Taking drink drivers as a specific example, each year in New Zealand, 30,000 people are convicted of drink driving. Now, you would think that the average judge, being an intelligent guy, would figure this guy might have a drinking problem and refer him for an alcohol and drug assessment. Unfortunately, that happens in only 5% of all cases of drink driving. Definitely, alcohol is the #1 law and order issue in this country right now.
We still didn't quite get to why you objected to the interview, but I'm going to have to go to Bryce now. Why is Garth McVicar the go-to guy? Is it simply because he's always there and always willing to offer a quote?
Look, there are various reasons, and it'll depend on the circumstance. At times, yes, it's accessibility. And I can recall one occasion in the Waikato Times newsroom within the last 3 months. We're 20 minutes away from deadline. We've got a very good court story from the day before where the news executives agree that a sentencing is very light. The family of the victims can't be found, or we couldn't contact them, or they wouldn't comment, something like that. And 20 minutes out, you've simply got to say, hey, we need balance in the story, get Garth on the phone. And look, he's for it. It doesn't
sound like balance. It sounds like you've framed the story in advance and you're ringing Garth because you know he'll splutter with outrage.
Well, because you've got two lawyers arguing a case about a sentencing matter. You know, what should this person get? And one wins. And there's one very happy lawyer about that, and there's one that's less happy and doesn't want to talk, and the family don't want to talk or whatever. So you need some comment to say, hey, put it in perspective to other cases and how does it work. Generally, I would agree that it's a failure of a reporting team, because these stories work better when they're personalised and you want the family reacting to what they've heard. So a lot of the time it will be circumstance, but equally, if he's leading the agenda, and if you think currently the Kahui reward money, he's got together the money, he may solve that case because he put the money up. That will be, and is a national story, that he deserves to lead.
I wonder whether the problem might not be the way that some of these stories are personalised. I think the case of Bailey Kurariki has become, in whatever perverse way, he's become a celebrity because he has been hammered time and time again in the news. And I think the Sensible Sentencing Trust has to answer to that. I'm not sure whether that's desirable.
Yeah, geez, I'd hate to hold Garth McVicar responsible for too much to do with Bailey Kurariki.
No, but just in terms of, I mean, the paper that you're about to go to went to him under circumstances that we're yet to really discover, and it sounds like it was an awful scene. Yeah. I wonder whether that's healthy when someone becomes, to some extent, a criminal celebrity.
From a distance, it doesn't sound like it's that healthy. But clearly there's ongoing issues with that guy that whether it's brought out to light in the media or not, he's still going to have to deal with through the justice system.
Now, Roger, these things happen. Things like Bailey Kurariki happen. How do you think they should be reported? Are you happy with the way they're reported?
Well, my concern in general about crime and the way it's reported is that the focus, and this is where Garth, plays a big part, the focus of so much of media attention on these kinds of issues is on the sentencing aspect. To me, when you're talking about the sentencing, you fundamentally hijack the whole discussion, which, in my view, should be more about rehabilitation. Sentencing's a part of the package, but there's almost no discussion about rehabilitation. And the point I was, in answer to your first question about why I made the complaint to the Broadcasting Standards Authority, it's because Garth McVicar basically has been able to dominate the discussion in the media, and he was interviewed by Breakfast. He presented his opinions on sentencing issues. Nobody else was interviewed. No other alternative opinions or information or evidence was presented. It was extremely one-sided. And in my opinion, the national debate on sentencing is one-sided.
So whose fault is that? Is that Garth's fault for always being there, or is it editors' fault? Whose fault is it? I
really don't know. I try in my own way. I'm not a media person. I'm just an alcohol and drug counsellor who deals with offenders on an almost daily basis. And I see these guys, most of them in prison. There's very little rehabilitation available in prison. A lot of guys, Graham Burton, William Bell, they got out of prison and they both had alcohol and drug addictions, without those alcohol and drug addictions being treated. In fact, without them even being assessed. If you let a psychopath out with an untreated alcohol or drug addiction, it's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Bryce, you're about to go, as I said, to the Herald on Sunday, which operates on a fairly tight rotate of property, celebrity and crime. It's unlikely
that... It's a secret recipe.
It's unlikely to change, is it? Because it does sell papers, doesn't it?
Well, look, there is a commercial imperative, absolutely, and if the newspaper doesn't make money, then they have less journalists and there'll be even less variety. That goes without saying. The wider issue, though, is that there are those stories being told. And if I can hark back to the current job that I've just recently left, the Waikato Times, we've challenged the government significantly on the way they have closed down a program called Te Hurihanga, which was a rehabilitative program for young offenders. And the national government came as close to an outright lie in their rationale behind closing it as they have done since they came to power. So poor was their rationale, in fact, they should really have apologised to the country. It was as close to the biggest pack of lies that I've seen as an editor in my time in the Waikato.
Good work by your paper there then, but it didn't really become a national story.
Well, that's right. It wasn't picked up by others, which I struggle to see. We do like the stories, the success stories of when things go well. But you try and get inside the system, Roger, and talk to people who go through these programs, and despite weeks and weeks of requests, could we talk to one person who had been through Te Hurihanga and changed their life? No. Could you, you saw from the clips of the psychologist in the earlier session that generally, and it's a generalisation, they struggle to be media friendly at times, and they lose the soundbite war. There's no doubt about that. So some training would perhaps help. Maybe more openness from editors, more work on that side.
I think that access point's a very strong one, because the Sensible Sentencing Trust and Garth in particular will actually broker access to victims' families for the media, won't they? Yeah, there's no one doing that for the success stories.
It's not just about accessibility with him, is it? He's a very good research tool, because if you ring and say, hey, this has happened in my patch and this sentence was given, he can say, well, that matches something that happened down here and there is a difference. And it does give you something and an outside person to go to and contrast it to. So, credit to him for having that resource there, because it is quite valuable.
Roger, people who think differently than Garth maybe need to upskill, get as good as he is?
They probably do. They probably do.
Mm. When does that start? How does that happen?
Well, the problem is it's not going to. I was talking to Professor John Pratt this morning, who is New Zealand's leading expert in criminology. He knows more about, and he's doing a comparative study of Scandinavian criminology compared with the way prison systems in Anglo-Saxon countries work. He is a world authority. He told me this morning that he was called last night by Time magazine, who wanted to interview him. Can he get on television in New Zealand? He struggles. And one of the reasons he struggles is because he doesn't want to do one-sentence sound bites.
On that note, we're going to have to finish, but this is a fairly strong one. Thank you to Roger Brooking and Bryce Johns. There's just time now for a quick look at a quite different story. Apple's long-awaited iPad tablet went on sale in the US over the weekend. And oh, there was excitement.
These people are happy. They queued for hours to get a shiny new toy before their friends did.
I mean, this is just...
But there's much more at stake for the iPad than bragging rights. This would be why Disney, biggest shareholder, Apple CEO Steve Jobs, bought Marvel Comics for $4 billion last year. And then there's the Wall Street Journal and a crop of other major media brands looking for magic and money. Stephen Fry observed a reverent, uncharacteristic silence as he unwrapped his iPad on YouTube, but burst forth with deep, fresh love in Time magazine.
For me, my iPad is like a gun lobbyist's rifle. The only way you'll take it from me is to prize it from my cold, dead hands.
While back in New Zealand, Fry's peers could only wait.
I'm the reviews editor of New Zealand's PC World magazine. I haven't seen an iPad yet. I'll swap you a biscuit for yours.
Good try. Unfortunately for early adopters, recent reports indicate the iPad won't be for sale in New Zealand until August. And that's our show. Thanks to all our guests, Garth McVicar, Roger Brooking and Bryce Johns. And thanks to you for watching. We'll be back with Media7 at the same time next week. Until then, goodbye.